Hello, and today I am following on the interviews with another chat, and today we've got the lovely Sarah Stones from Plain Sailing Motivation, and she is absolutely passionate about motivation and how to get motivated. She's got lots of top tips, some of which hopefully she'll share with us as well. But I'd like to sort of get to know Sarah a little bit better so that you can too. So Sarah, tell us a little bit about yourself and sort of how you got into coaching and sort of doing what you do. A bit of a background about you, please.
Very positive background, and please don't hold it against me, but I started off with a career in HR, and I then became really passionate about the difference that motivation makes to us all. And that was about 5 years ago now. And since then, I've become more and more of a specialist in that area. And the more I learn, the more passionate I become that actually we all need to be thinking about what motivates us a lot more than we do, because basically when we motivated, we can jump out of bed much quicker and we achieve an awful lot more. And motivation, particularly even more so at this time, is so crucial because it affects our well-being and our engagement as well, and our mental health.
And has some of sort of your passion for motivation come from a place of experience, a real lack of motivation in yourself? Or like, what have you done yourself? Have you noticed any kind of ebbs and flows in your motivation, or have you always had quite a strong level of motivation and wanted to inspire others to have the same?
That's a really good question. Actually, I'd say before I went self-employed, I would go into a job all full of the joys of spring, all sort of asking so many questions. How does this work? How can we change it? How can we improve this? What can we do to make a difference so that this works better? And then it was always similar pattern. After a couple of years, I'd be like, am I in the right job? Am I in the right career? What's going on? And having now learned about motivation and done a motivational map report, which is it's an online questionnaire that takes 10 minutes and it produces the most scarily accurate report about your own motivation. But when I read mine, when someone did that 5 years ago, it was like all the light bulbs came on for me because I need to be making a difference. I need to be getting feedback and seeing how what I'm doing is making a difference. And also, I need to be problem solving and coming up with some really creative solutions, which is why I was always so motivated when I went into a new job. And then after a couple of years, all that bright, shiny stuff would have gone. And I'd be like, so what can I do now? So yeah.
Sorry, well, and is some of that just because you had made all the suggestions that you felt that could be made to improve that particular business and within your role and the team around you? Or was it that just natural, I guess you get a bit, things can get a bit stale, or was it a kind of combination of the two?
I think it was a combination of the two, but I think I know now that I can either be working with one-to-one with a coaching client, or working with parents supporting their children with motivation, or actually going into businesses. And I think partly this is driven by what I've realised over the years is I think people with disabilities, we have a really good way of looking at something and trying to work out how we can do it in a different way to either make life easier or improve things. It comes from having to actually, in my own personal life, but I'm really good at doing that. And I think I would get to the point where I'd done all the big stuff and then I needed to be doing it for someone else
Okay.
at work. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And it's interesting sort of with you talking about the disability and it giving you a different perspective on things, because I've seen it a lot where I've read books and listened to motivational speakers, and the ones that have a story where they've overcome some sort of impact, whether it's something that they're born with or whether it's sort of they've had been in some sort of accident and that has impacted their life. And it's really about that attitude as well to how they overcome that is very interesting. So tell us a little bit about your own disability, if you don't mind sharing, and like your own personal story about how it's maybe made you stronger. You've seen it as it's given you that different perspective otherwise that you can then bring into your coaching.
Yeah, I think I've always been very resilient, and I was always supported really well uh, by my parents. If I wanted to do something, then they would always help me to achieve that and be helping me to think, okay, so actually not, oh no, you shouldn't be doing whatever silly thing that I decided I was going to do. Okay, if you want to do that, then let's help you. And I think you do get very resilient, and I'm very interested to combine all the motivation stuff with all the positive psychology and growth mindset stuff, and I bring all of that in very much into my coaching. I've always had a disability. I was born with it, so I haven't known anything else, and I've just got on with it. And actually, I think I probably achieved an awful lot more because of it, because I've been so bloody minded and determined.
Well, that's good for you. I like what you said about your parents as well. It sounds like they were very forward thinking, and rather than seeing your disability as something to write you off or hold you back or a label, you are not your disability. It's just something that you have and you live with. But you as a person are so much more than that. So it's really refreshing to hear, and that they've brought you up in that way, and it's obviously carried through your life, and then obviously how you can then sort of show up as a coach of if someone, and that's not to say that, you know, people without disabilities or any kind of background or walk of life can have highs and lows in their life, but I guess it's that again of sort of saying to yourself, you know, well, it could be worse, you know, and there is a sense of that, and I guess that's something you can kind of talk from your own experience of overcoming certain challenges, of saying, you know, it's not always easy, but you know.
And I think it must be really hard as a parent to see any child, whether it's a child with a disability or not. It's so hard to step back and see what's your child struggling to do something when you know you could just step in and help them. But I am so passionate that actually we learn so much more from failing, and there's no such thing as failure, because actually everything is about a learning experience. And I think the more, if it's probably a really strong message, is just let your kids have a go and let them get things wrong and have to learn, do things again, because actually we all know that we learn a lot more from getting things wrong than we do from getting them right.
It's very true. If you think back of sort of things that your parents tell you, or when someone gives you advice about something, it may be very, you know, really good advice, but it doesn't stop you doing that stupid thing until you've kind of had that lesson yourself. It's a much more powerful lesson when you have gone through and made that mistake. And, you know, as a friend, and, you know, business coaches, or you know, your family around you don't want you making painful mistakes, but it's a part of life, and it's a part of what shapes us. I mean, I've made mistakes, and I've had sort of ups and downs, but I don't have any major regrets, because I feel like, well, that took me off here, and I learned this, and that led me to that. So, you know, to take away a certain like a painful decision, or well, that took me off in that direction, which maybe wasn't the best, but you just, I guess you don't know what you don't know, and you just got to get on with it, haven't you, really?
Yeah, I mean, before I set up my own business, I'd always wanted to work for myself, and I'd never been brave enough. And 5 years ago, I had breast cancer. Well, actually, that really put life into perspective, and I thought, well, if I don't try self-employment, I'll never know whether it'll work or not.
And have you got any regrets for going self-employed?
No, I'm definitely not as well off as I used to be, but I'm much happier.
Good.
Yeah.
So you mentioned this thing called a motivation map, is that right?
Yeah,
Could you tell us a little bit more about that? That sounds really interesting. Is that something that you do as part of your coaching process? Is it very much something as part of an initial like onboarding type thing, or is it part of you know, a bit further down the process? How does it work? And you know, if people are interested to learn more about working through that with you, where do they go? What do they do?
So I either do a one-off session just using the motivational map report, and so that people can get a really good in-depth understanding of what motivates and drives them, and then we look at an action plan, or as you just said, I use it as part of a coaching program. But I think lots of people have done psychometric tests which look at our personality.
So is that like DISC, and
Yeah,
there's lots of different ones, but I guess DISC is
yeah,
famous one.
and the colour,
There's a colour one, and I think I've
yeah,
also heard of there's a shape one as well. There's all sorts of
yeah,
different ones. There are
yeah.
some overlaps, isn't there? As
There are,
yeah.
and I think whatever we do, we learn from it. But they all look at our personality, and it's not our personality that gets us out of bed in the morning, it's our motivation. So what this does is it really accurately identifies not only what motivates us, but also how well each of those motivators is currently being met. Um, and so we're able to not only sort of have a really good discussion about whether you're motivated by doing one or two things. So there's 9 different motivators, and we all have all 9 of them, and they include things like belonging and friendship and having recognition and having security and predictability. So people with the security and predictability motivator tend to be the ones that are very good at planning and organisation and all the stuff that I'm actually not that good at. And they tend to like to have time to think things through and plan things, and their focus is very much on people's feelings. And then there's the other motivators. So we've got the searcher, which is all about making a difference, and we've got the motivator all about being innovative and change. And then we've got the motivator all about freedom and being able to do what you want to do when you want to do it.
So
And
are
then
these like I guess both practical needs as well as sort of I guess emotional and spiritual needs as human beings that we kind of need to bring joy to our life and meaning?
completely, yeah. And actually, if you've got a real love of learning and development, actually, how do we meet that motivator? Are you getting it in your job? Are you focusing on it? And actually, if you've got that real love of learning, the likelihood is you'll love having a mentor to learn from, but also mentoring others. So, have you got the opportunity to do that? So, and the only 2 motivators that I haven't mentioned, one is all about being in charge and loving to take control and actually being not only being very good at it, but enjoying it, because we can be very good at something, but if it doesn't motivate us, actually that's not going to be something that really gives us that energy. So that's where actually when I'm working with children that are either choosing options at school or looking for careers when they're leaving school or college. We'll look at, okay, so what are you good at, but does that time with what motivates you? Because when you're taking options at school, you quite often push into the options that actually you've excelled at maths. So let's do maths at A level or look for a career that involves that. I always use the example, I'm quite good at spreadsheets. Would I want to do them every day? No, it will bore me rigid if it's not what motivates me. So we can be very good at things, but that's not always what makes us shine.
It's very interesting. I think it's good to know that that's an aspect of sort of what you do, you know, because you sort of touched on that you work one-to-one with people, you do, you've got some coaching programs, and you said about the sort of coaching of children, you know, and the parents sort of helping them through sort of decision making. So with the sort of one-to-one clients, for example, is there any particular type of person or type of industry that you particularly like working with? Is there like a key thing that people can listen out, you know, if they want to sort of help refer work your way or go, oh, I'm that person, I'll have a chat with Sarah?
Yeah, so probably two things to say there. One is I am so passionate that if we focus more on motivation, um, we will all be able to improve our well-being. And during lockdown and continuing actually, I've been running free webinars, particularly for parents, because I know lots of people have had lots of challenges homeschooling, and I think all our motivation has been knocked. I also do free 15-minute discovery course, so I'll have a chat and just really to try and discover what's going on and if there is anything that I can help people with. And then I've been delivering webinars for teams in organisations as well, because particularly if staff have been furloughed, there's a horrendous figure that 40% of staff that were furloughed haven't had any contact from their organisations whatsoever.
That's shocking.
And I think actually in terms of employee engagement, it's so crucial to have that contact. And we know that people couldn't do work, but it was written into all the furloughing guidelines that people could still do training and development, and organisations could pay for that. And actually doing a webinar to understand that the feelings of frustration and maybe low mood, depression, maybe feeling free to think about what your life involved. It's all been normal. We've all been on this roller coaster, haven't we,
Absolutely.
of emotions?
I mean,
And
I personally experienced it myself because, I mean, I also work part-time at a digital agency called White Star, and I was doing 3 days a week, and in May I had to go be furloughed, and that was a big sort of shift. Luckily I was able to sort of do more with my own design business, Lovely Evolution, and I've had other bits going on as well as family stuff and sort of dealing with working back at home. So I had that thing of being busy, so it wasn't like I was sort of twiddling my thumbs and decluttering my wardrobe. But I did find that at the end of June and into July, I had about a good 3 weeks where my motivation was at rock bottom, and I really struggled. Like it really seemed to be a pattern of come Monday and even bleeding into Tuesday where I really didn't want to do work. And I love what I do, but it was just at that time I didn't want to do it. It was really difficult to get out of bed. If I could have sat on the sofa and just watched telly all day, I would have done, because that was the mood. And it took a bit of self-reflection, a bit of opening up to some trusted people to acknowledge that something was going on. But I felt it was very much a motivation thing. And so it was like, okay, well, how can I get motivated or make that first step? I knew once I got back going into things that I would start seeing results again. I would sort of be back in the flow, but it was that getting started. And I did do some sort of reflecting on what's my long-term goals. Maybe I'm not motivated because I'm not looking ahead and I'm not excited about what I'm working towards. And I did a bit of that, but I think some of it was being able to sort of tap back into what my goals are, but also just the general remembering and being kind to ourselves that, you know, there's been a big, massive thing going on globally. You can't help but it impact. And it's just like, sometimes you just got to step back. You just got to take a bit of time out and just, and thankfully it did pass, but it wasn't a fun place to be. I mean, that's my experience or what I've recently experienced. What would you say, what I experience, is that something that you work with a lot of clients and have experienced time and time again? Has that been a kind of common theme of people experiencing the same thing?
It is. And it is normal. And I think we sometimes beat ourselves up, don't we, if we're feeling like that at the moment. And actually it's normal. But the little things that we can do, I don't know whether you've come across the PERMA model, which is part of Martin Seligman, who is the father of positive psychology. And positive psychology, and believe it or not, it's only in the last 20 years that psychologists have studied not what goes wrong when people have poor mental health, but actually what can we do to maintain and develop good mental health. And there's some really simple things that we can do. One is all about positive emotions. And I don't know whether you've tried this, Mary-Louise, but actually just going into the bathroom and smiling at yourself in the mirror. And it really works because it sets off that serotonin and dopamine, which are the positive chemicals that our brains need. And laughing is brilliant. Stick something on the telly that really makes you laugh, or watch some funny children or something funny on YouTube or Facebook. That's a brilliant, really simple thing.
I think someone was suggesting you know, put some music on that you love and like
Yeah,
dance
have
about
a
a bit, you
dance.
know,
Yeah,
get moving. But I
yeah.
guess it sort of depends on where you're at on the sort of spectrum of sort of mood, but it's taking any little small steps to
It's
feel that
those
bit better, isn't it?
really, it is, it's those really small steps. And if you're not feeling in a good place yourself, and I've been here, the most difficult thing to do is to pick up the phone to talk to someone or go out for a walk. And actually, so during lockdown, I live on my own. I was going out for a bike ride every day, and I would say hello and smile at everybody that I went past. And actually, just doing that made me feel better. But you also know that they may be in the same situation as you, so it's going to make them feel better too. And actually, just having a simple list, if you're really, really struggling, just give yourself a list. And I would say write it down rather than using your phone or your laptop, even if it's get dressed, have a shower, cook dinner, and just tick things off that list as you achieve them, because just the actual ticking something off that list that you've achieved really supports those positive feelings. And it's just, I mean, that is really simple things. But if you do that on a day that, or every day, you'll feel better. And of course, the really good one is have a little notebook and write down 3 things either that you're grateful for or that have made you smile each day. Now, when you are feeling really bad, that can be really hard, but it may be that you've seen the sunshine or a, a, a flower came out in the garden or on the window ledge. But actually, we know that if you write 3 things down every day for 30 days, the benefits of that for your mental health last for 3 months. And
Wow.
actually,
I
it's,
didn't realise the length of time it impacts
yeah,
these small
it's
things.
incredible because it partly trains your brain to look out for the positive things, which can be really hard if we're struggling with that to start with. But also, when you see it, so if I look out the window and see the sunshine, I get that boost of serotonin and dopamine. When I write it down, I get another boost. And then when I'm looking at what I wrote yesterday or the day before, I get another boost. So it's like supercharging all these little hits of sunshine and nice things.
I love that. And I think also, I think from what I've read and, you know, been told that, you know, as human beings, our brains are more wired to sort of pick up about negative things. You know, if you receive a negative comment, you're much more likely to remember that and hold on to that, or a negative experience. So by sort of focusing on the positive things that have happened in that day, it sort of reminds you that, you know, that maybe, you know, you stubbing your toe or that bad news or whatever, it didn't define the day. The whole day wasn't rubbish. you know, it may have not been a fantastic day overall, but you know, that not to underestimate this, the power of celebrating these small wins of making the bed or making dinner, putting clothes on.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like when I was in the very low period, it was very much like I sort of negotiated with myself. I thought, well, if I really, really don't want to sit at the dining table where I'd set up camp and work there, well, where am I willing to work? And I was like, okay, well, I've got a laptop. I'll work in the bedroom on the bed with some YouTube playing on my iPad, you know. So I was sort of giving myself these sort of compromises. So I wasn't obviously working at my most optimal, but I felt that it was one step better than just staying in bed and doing nothing. But I think you've covered some really interesting, you know, really good reminders of, you know, what we can all do. But just to sort of sum up a little bit, you know, I'll share your links, like how people can get in contact and stuff. I did want to ask you, with the webinars, the free webinars that you were doing, is there any way, where can people access that? Is that something you're keeping free for people to access, the replays? And where can people see them?
I'm still doing them live, and partly actually that is about my motivation, because I love doing that and I love talking to people, and I think you get a lot more value from if I'm talking through to people on a live webinar. So you can access them either on Eventbrite or direct through my website. There's a booking page on there, and I will be adding some more generic webinars on there, so that they're not all just focusing on motivating children.
Okay, well that's good. Like I said, I'll share the links in the description. Yeah, no, I think that's been really interesting. You know, I think people maybe underestimate the power of motivation, or think that it's something that some people are born with, or you just happen to wake up that way, not realizing that there are things that you can do to improve your own levels of motivation. And sort of, you know, step by step achieve those goals that you want to work towards, whatever they may be.
And goals are so much easier to achieve if we set them so that they're congruent with what motivates you. A really simple way to look at it is, if you're wanting to go running, for example, depending on what motivates you, we can look at, is it best for you to run with friends in a club, so it's competitive, to run on your own because you enjoy that freedom, to run and raise money for a charity because you love making a difference. So you can see that even with something
You got a doggy there.
I'm so sorry, I've got my mum dog. Phoebe.
It's all right. My husband
simple.
and son have just come back home, so I'm just waiting for them to interrupt at any point.
Yeah.
He wants to be known.
She's very little, but she's got a very loud part.
Well, I think we're kind of pretty much there. I think we've covered a lot there. So I think we'll, like I said, we'll wrap up there. So thank you so much, Sarah, for joining us.
Right.
I hope people will connect with you and, you know, make use of your 15-minute discovery call, or book on sort of some of your free webinars and stuff. I found it really interesting, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Mary Louise.